Sponsored by Stand Up to All Hate. Call a timeout against hate.
So, boys, you were there. Was it as cool as it looked on television? The college football playoffs.
That was everything I'd hoped would be and more. Obviously went to two separate venues. I'll let LaVar speak on Happy Valley, but man, it was electric. It was here's the thing I love the most about it is the passion behind it. Now, that comes with some unfortunate things. For example, in particular in Columbus, Ohio, for Ohio State and Tennessee, a young man was told that Santa's not real by an Ohio State fan who happened to be rooting for the Volunteers. There was a lot of things being thrown around about the Civil War. A lot of those things were mentioned in there. So there was definitely a divide. There was definitely passion behind, I think, the game of football and what was on the, the stakes and what was on the line. But it was awesome. Like every single piece of it. I know there's going to be people who complain about the results of the game. We'll get to that. But I had an absolute blast. It was the coolest thing I've seen.
Yeah, we SMU fans were pretty confident going into it. You know, I had a few of them at my tailgate. We were hanging out, and the environment was amazing. Like it had a tremendous feel of nostalgia. You know, it's just like walking in there and looking around and feeling the cold and seeing like the snow coming down a little bit. It just gave you a feeling of this is truly like a historical moment, and you could feel it. Like I could feel it, and I think everybody else could feel the energy in the air too. So it was pretty cool, man. And then, you know, for it to be a game that was defined by, you know, Penn State's defense and more specifically by the linebackers, it was it felt right. It felt very, very correct. So
I was going to ask, was
happy to be there.
Was Kevin Jennings at your tailgate before the game?
No.
And that's what led to.
No.
Okay, I was just wondering what that was about.
Kevin Jennings was not at my tailgate.
He was serving it up.
He was serving it.
It did appear.
It was cold, man.
It did appear, and it was pretty obvious that the home field advantage was real. And I don't know if that was why the blowouts happened in every single game, but it did feel like the visiting team had a hard time either adjusting to the conditions or just the overwhelming support and advantage that the home team was getting. That's what it felt like watching it. Maybe it was different in person, but that's what it felt like watching it. It seemed like it was a big difference.
It's one of the reasons why I'd love to expand to 16. And I know they probably won't. I know they're probably going to go to 14 or something else. But 16 would make sense because I don't know that these teams deserve buys. You know, and I think we can figure like here's the reality is everyone's going to complain about the results of the game, which if you're going to complain about that, then you must not have been watching the NFL when you look at the average margin of victory in the wild card round, early rounds in the playoffs, also double digits. Like those games, majority of the time, are not even close. Go back to 2023, look at the playoffs, look at the margin of victories in those. So, like, spare me your complaints about it. The other thing is it comes off as ridiculously hypocritical. Like, we all wanted the expansion of the playoff. We all wanted this environment, these opportunities to be able to go to a home playoff game, you know, this late in the year where you've got the scenes of snow and everything else. And then when we get it, we're going to complain about it? I mean, come on, man. Like, have you watched the 4-team college football playoff semifinals? Those haven't been competitive either. So anyone who went into these games thinking that they were going to be extremely competitive, they must not have followed college football, or even for that matter, watched the NFL. Because that's kind of how it's worked out. And I think if you're being honest with yourselves, some people will take issue with this, but all the favorites won, right? There was no upsets, which is kind of how it's supposed to be. Now, I understand the margin of victory was, you know, pretty big in most cases. But the truth of the matter is, like, those are 4 of the best teams in college football. And you had at least 2 teams you would say were on the bubble in SMU and I'd say Indiana. And then you had a team that had 3 losses that earned their way in by winning the ACC championship in Clemson. So the truth of the matter is you probably had 3 of the teams that were fringe teams anyway. But I hate to see people complaining about a product in its first year that to me was awesome. And the worst part is I don't know that it's the fans so much as it is the people who actually work in the industry, which is what doesn't make any sense to me. You know, everyone's kind of complaining about, however the match. What does it matter? Like, we got awesome college football environments, and the next round, to me, is only going to get better and better as we get closer to the national champions. So I can't stand to hear people complaining about it. We got what we wanted. That's the expanded playoffs. Stop bitching and moaning about it.
I think that's people are just conditioned to do it in college football.
That's what it is. It's not just college football.
Well, yeah, in life in
people
general.
are conditioned to do that, and that's what it comes down
to. The whole. Like, what did you there's no guarantees. Like, you get a matchup, and either the matchup's great or it could be a wipeout. Like, there's no guarantees. But the fact that you had the opportunity to watch it and experience it, and I'm the same way. Like, I look at it and go, it's year one. Like this is the first installment of this, and it doesn't mean that there's not going to be an upset in the next round. It doesn't mean there's not going to be 2 upsets next year. Maybe it'll be chalk next year as well, too. But just the idea that, well, because we're just used to complaining, let's just find something else to complain about. It's like, okay, then if we expand, then the team that gets left out, they're going to complain about that. Or if there's a result, that's the way it goes, man.
If it's such a negative approach, it's a waste of time, if you ask me. Because at the end of the day, those teams did something that earned them the right and the opportunity to compete. So at the end of the day, if they were to lose, they lost. If they were to win, then you're going to have something to complain about as well as it applies to that. So the bottom line is you had an opportunity to strap it up. You had an opportunity to go out there and try it. I mean, we had at length conversations about the burr that Cignetti had and how upset he was. He did his interview and talked about what he talked about, felt like they should have had a home game and this, that, and the other, and so on and so forth. And you know what? I believed him. I believed it. Like, okay, they played well this year, and they didn't show up. They didn't show up. I mean, maybe they showed up, man. I mean, I said I felt like Notre Dame was improving dramatically, and the team that got clipped by Northern Illinois early on in the year, that team is far long gone. That's not the same team, and I felt like they were going to earn their way and punch a ticket into the playoffs. They proved that they're not a team that was the same team that had that loss. It was a very impressive and decisive victory. I looked at Tennessee. I thought Tennessee could have went into, after watching what Michigan did, I thought that Tennessee had a legit opportunity to go into Ohio and Columbus and win. It didn't work out that way. But if people are spending more time talking about, the product is poor, this sucks, they shouldn't, man, look here, man, then go do something else. Go do something else, because when it comes down to it, when those kids strap up, or when they're working out, or when they're preparing and they're walking to class and they decide, a kid can decide to go to a school that isn't one of the main Power 4 schools. They can decide to go to those schools, and they should have the opportunity to work their ass off. And if their record says that the committee is going to put them into the playoff and give them the opportunity to compete, then let it be that. Let it be that. Like, all these holier-than-thou conversations about they didn't belong. Let it play out. Let it play out. How do you get an opportunity to prove or earn the right that they should be saying you should be there? The only way you get an opportunity to do that is if you get the opportunity to play. If they never have gotten the opportunity to play, Alabama should have been in, Miami should have been in, da-da-da. If you take traditional powers and you replace the teams that have had good years, how do they get the opportunity to grow? So is it the rich get richer and keep the poor, and you serve a purpose for the season? You don't serve a purpose for anything else further than the regular season. This is the purpose you serve because you don't belong in the playoffs. I think that's BS, man. Let it play out. And it played out. God bless. The underdogs lost. Okay.
By the way,
and they had home games. It was great. I thought it was great for college sport.
And by the way, it's not even like these were pay-per-view events. You didn't pay for him. So, like, the result is a result. You got what you got. And people that are looking back afterwards going, oh, well, if so-and-so was in that game, it would have been different. Tough balls, they didn't do enough to get there. Like, and you want to blame it on the voters. It's like being pissed at somebody who advanced in your company and you being like, man, I would do such a better job if I was in his spot.
And that's exactly what those people do.
Yeah, but your lazy ass didn't put in the work to get there. Like, so that you're missing a key part of the conversation. So I thought it was awesome, man.
Sponsored by Stand Up to All Hate. Call a timeout against hate.